the next panel, which is Women and Leadership. Alexandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be moderating another event at Philo4Thought. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's event and introduce our speakers for the Women in Leadership panel. We will be discussing topics regarding the challenges and rewards of being a professional woman in a leadership position today. We will also be discussing advice on current steps young professional women can take in order to establish themselves, as well as critical aspects of outreach and philanthropy in our society. Before we start with our live speakers, I'd like to share a video that has been prepared for us by the Honorable Olga Kefalogianni, who has served as a member of parliament in Greece since 2007. She's also been Minister of Tourism and legal advisor to the Prime Minister of Greece. She is the founder and president of the Center for Gender Inequality Policy Studies of the European Public Law Organization, as well as a member of several committees such as the ELAS International Chamber of Commerce Women and the Committee on European Affairs. Additionally, she is the ambassador of the Greek Parliament to the Women Political Leaders, the head of the Greek Parliament delegation to the IPU, and the honorary president of the Maria Callas Hellenic Society, as well as the author of the role of the European Union in the Cyprus issue. Mrs. Kefalogianni is also an attorney with experience in Athens and abroad, and is also a member of the Athens Bar Association. We are honored that she was able to prepare this video for our event.
Hello, and thank you for your kind invitation. As member of the Greek Parliament since 2007 and as former Minister of Tourism, it is my pleasure to virtually participate in today's Philo4Thought annual Spring Symposium. I would like to congratulate the founders as well as all active participants of the Hellenic Mentoring Initiative, for it is a foundation established to provide career empowerment for young professionals in order for them to achieve the next level of success in work and in life. The Hellenic Mentoring Initiative's multifaceted actions, such as collaborative publications, advisory workshops, and networking opportunities, represent an ideal example of the civil society's collective initiatives on actual challenges. At the same time, the Hellenic Mentoring Initiative is an excellent example of the ways in which Greek culture and spirit could contribute to society and economic progress. As a multitasking educational basis of teaching in combination with an open-door policy towards an inclusive and high-quality community service for all those in need. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, over this past year, the whole world is living under unprecedented conditions due to the pandemic. Inevitably, the effects of this health crisis have caused an intense universal dialogue focusing on the global society's recovery from the pandemic, as well as on the growth of the world economy after the crisis. The main topics of discussion in this global dialogue focus on social progress and resilience. In order to achieve sustainable development and resilient societies, we should take into consideration a fundamental common denominator. Diversity and inclusion must be foundational values in our societies. In reference to inequalities, we should take into consideration that worldwide, those who have suffered the most throughout the pandemic were women and girls. Women entrepreneurs were also affected by the pandemic, as many had to close down their small or medium-sized enterprises. Furthermore, women in general are more likely to lose their jobs and face economic insecurity. At the same time, women are caretakers and also manage their household. Not to mention that, unfortunately, domestic violence against women and girls has risen due to lockdowns. One of the most important key factors to build back our world and reach out to the new normal is through the empowerment of women leaders in all fields. A sustainable, inclusive recovery for our societies should include women in key positions in all fields of society, politics, and the economy. This is actually the main goal of the Women Political Leaders Organization, a global organization aiming to support and strengthen female political leadership, in which I participate as the ambassador of the Greek Parliament. At the same time, In order to further promote gender equality issues, I founded, in collaboration with specialized academics, the Center for Gender and Equality Policy Studies under the European Public Law Organization. Our vision is to promote knowledge and reflection on major issues of gender and equality, both separately as well as in their complex and multi-level interactions. Ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that female leadership should be further encouraged. Female leaders combine special characteristics such as that they are people-oriented, they are sociable, expressive, and establish close relationships, strengthening the possibility of achieving commitments. They are more inclined to cooperate, making teamwork more active by including more people. They are capable of operating and thinking in different directions at the same time. Female leadership is inclusive, encourages participation, and shares information and power with those they lead. Women generally take more into consideration the human side of individuals and generate high levels of empathy. Furthermore, as a woman parliamentarian, I have to stress the need of enhancing women participation in politics, and especially young women. We are still underrepresented in political decision-making around the world. More women in political decision-making means, first of all, more equality. Equal representation lies at the very core of our democracy. Secondly, more prosperity and stability. Having more female decision makers is good for everyone, not just for women. Research shows that society as a whole becomes more secure and economically prosperous as gender equality improves. And thirdly, better policy. Some argue that women bring different qualities, values, and priorities to the political arena, and thereby make policy-making processes more holistic and effective. In Greece, women's parliamentary representation is still low. Gender stereotypes of leaders are the main reason for this situation. Gender stereotypes are pervasive and have an impact on all aspects of women's and men's behavior, in the economy, in politics, and also in education and employment. For example, women still make up a very small percentage of the technology sector. That is why Philo4Thought is an exceptional initiative. We need strong networks and alternative and progressive educational methods in order to tackle stereotypes and work towards a more inclusive and prosperous society. One of the women in leading positions that served the community and gave an excellent example in this society is Professor Chris Salboudis, CEO and founder of the Philo4Thought initiative. I hope that soon we will be able to travel again and have the opportunity to meet in person. I would also like to express my respect for Mrs. Liotopoulos. It is widely known that she is a remarkable woman, an outstanding person and philanthropist who supports people in need. Her lifetime achievements are really remarkable, and I would like to congratulate her for today's honors. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to congratulate Philo4Thought on its inspired action. As a Greek woman parliamentarian, I would like to reconfirm my engagement to support your great social mission. I wish you every success in today's event and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
We'd like to thank the Honorable Olga Kefalogianni for her kind words and inspiring outlook on our initiative. We congratulate her on her efforts to promote female leadership in politics, and we look forward to the day that we can sometime meet up for some coffee in Athens. Joining us live, we have Alexandra Vassilaros, TerryLynn Smith, and Artemis Kohas, who will be giving us their insight and advice on female leadership. Alexandra Vassilaros is an award-winning playwright and Pulitzer co-finalist for drama. She is the president and owner of Vassilaros & Sons Coffee, a fourth-generation family business that has supplied and roasted delicious coffee to consumers for over 100 years. On the board of New York City's The Bowery Mission, which delivers care to people recovering from the crisis of homelessness. She is also the founder of a writing initiative called the Make Meaning Workshop, a creative approach to healing from grief and loss that offers periodic workshops. TerryLynn Smith is the founding president of Giraffes Consulting, a professional career coaching practice where her clients are at all levels of professional development, including recent college graduates. Artemis Kohas is the founder of the Kohas Agency, a boutique communications firm. She is a well-rounded communications and PR professional with a special expertise in all things Greek. She's also the founder of Mastika Shop New York, a way to promote and sell mastika products internationally. Welcome, ladies. It is our pleasure to have you with us today. I will also be attaching a couple of articles in the chat. One features the family business of our guest speaker, Alexandra, and another one is about female leadership. So my first question goes to all of you. What are some challenges and rewards to being a professional woman in a leadership position in 2021? Alexandra, would you like to start? You're on mute. Wait.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for being part of this important symposium and to meet so many interesting and esteemed people who are doing such good and raising consciousness around these issues of, especially in relation to women. And opportunities they are being allowed to enter and participate in a lively and formidable way. So that said, I come to my own business in a very interesting way. It was following a great interruption in all of our lives through a tragedy of the loss of my husband, and his leadership. So I was foisted into a position of leadership at a time where it wasn't expected. And we had already made alternative plans, and all of a sudden those plans were interrupted because we had put in place a family member who didn't quite have the leadership abilities to lead us through the loss of my husband and move us forward. So suddenly it was up to me. My background is largely as a playwright and writer. I've had plays on and off Broadway. As you said, a finalist for the Pulitzer in 2004. And so my acumen was slight, but my appetite was large. My commitment also to the legacy of the business was deeply felt in my soul and in my experience. Not only was I related to the Vassilaros family, but my family grew up in Ikaria, where their family emigrated from, and we had many sinuous and strong bonds together, some which we knew and some that we would later discover. And it was this platform of history, legacy, and mutuality that gave me the strength and the appetite to move into a leadership position. And that said, I'll just say, of course, I needed help there. And so I went in the immediate, my husband had very practically surrounded me with very competent people, people I knew but did not necessarily know well. So I had to come to know them. I had to come to discover how, if we all shared the same desire to keep the business alive and well and growing. And then I had to hire people who could also teach me and orient me to the world and help me lead, co-lead to the world that we'd occupied a place in vibrantly. So all those things are part of how I learned to become a leader.
I think I agree with you when you say that you have to like rise to the occasion and just take it on, and how whatever happens, and you just hope for the best. And that's how I kind of lead my life too. I get thrown into these situations sometimes, and you just have to take it on with positivity. And you've obviously done that. I know you've grown the company greatly since you took on your leadership. So congratulations. Terry, would you like? Mm-hmm.
Little thing to add. I love what you said, that you hope for the best, but then you practically have to execute. in the best way that you learn how to execute and that others can also help to inform.
Thank you. Terry, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I think the challenges are what created the rewards that we have as professional women out there. I think it's an opportunity to lead and to mentor other women, and we have to make that a priority. We can't wait to be asked, oh, would you be my mentor? We need to seek out young professional women and offer our services in order to help them continue to move forward. We need to incorporate inclusiveness, diversity, and the appreciation of all staff and all people who are participating in the company. Too many times, the staff is not recognized, not valued, not appreciated, and then we wonder why people leave our company to do other things. So we want to retain the good talent, and that's another way to do it. Some of the approaches that I have followed, and I think it would be good for others to do as well, is to think long-term, current strategic goals and future opportunities for growth. So we are in the moment, but we still need to keep our eye out there for the future in order for us to make a seamless transition as we move forward. We need to also think about, as women and as women leaders, process improvement. But before we go out there and talk about all the things that we want to do, you need to observe, to evaluate what's happening now and why, and then propose solutions that are based on facts, not something frilly or something out there that is not doable. Really stick to hardcore. When we look at our counterparts and the men in the world, they come in with concrete fact and they move forward based on experience and current knowledge. And so we need to be able to do that confidently. We need to respect the past and current decisions in the process. We also need to really understand the history so that either we can counteract the history or that we know it and don't repeat it going forward. We have to learn how to delegate, create autonomy, and encourage new ideas and suggestions from everybody, including the staff. So many times the people are actually doing the work to meet the strategic goals of the senior management are the ones that really know what's working and what's not working. I'm not always sure that senior management, when they put their strategic goals together, even understand how it could be accomplished. So we really have to listen to the people that are doing that. And I think we as women tend to do that anyway. We're very passionate. We are very empathetic. We enjoy hearing other people's impressions and feelings. And we also need that to grow. And we don't think that our idea is the only idea. And so we like to bring the family together and make it a bigger success. I know when I was a VP for HR, I knew my idea and how the plan should work was not necessarily the best idea. The best one came from collaboration. And that's what we need to do with more staff. We need to create and delegate. We need to create autonomy. And we need to encourage new ideas and suggestions and listen to each one. They all may not be great, but the courage to speak about them needs to be rewarded. We need to lead the staff from behind, not to micromanage. Have confidence in yourself and in the staff. Trust your staff that can do the job. Encourage continuous learning and encourage the staff to want to grow. I feel my total responsibility in one thing that my passion in my professional world is to help others meet their potential. And when I do that, I'm really excited. Many times I help people reach their potential and then leave me to a higher position in the corporation. But I find that as a win. Now I got to replace them, but that nonetheless, it was a really exciting thing. And when people see others can grow, they want to grow too. And then they become more invested in themselves and guiding themselves to move forward. You know, I really break it down to simply use the golden rule as part of your leadership style. And I think that's what the gentleman was talking about earlier, is that golden rule. Treat others like you'd like to be treated. And finally, celebrate success with everyone, because everyone is part of it.
Thank you, Terry. And I completely agree. Collaboration is key to any form of communication, and that's something that I practice as well. Artemis, would you like to give your insight on challenges and rewards to being a professional woman?
Yes. First of all, I just want to thank Chris Salbudis for all the amazing work that she's doing with Philo4Thought, and all the people on her team. And I'm so honored to have been asked to be on this panel. So thank you very much. I think challenges and rewards. So challenges, I think both of these women who spoke before me did an excellent job at covering a lot of things. But as Terry said, is knowing the history. I think when I was younger, I was sort of like not wanting to be a feminist, or not wanting to have a label, or not really thinking of myself as a woman in the business world, and not understanding how there's anything different about me being a business person versus anyone else. But then I started doing things in the business world, and suddenly I was realizing more and more, like, I'm the only woman that is on this team, or wow, my landlord is treating me really funny, but would he ever treat a man that way? So I think once you become woke to those things, and I say that as sort of like a challenge, because then you start is understanding how other people perceive you, because you might not see yourself as any different than any other person in your gender first, but other people treat you differently, and they might not even be aware of that either. It's sort of like this big cultural thing that we're all a part of. So it is. And then on the flip side of that is the reward that Terry also brought up, which is to mentor people. It's an opportunity for us who are out there, who become woke to these things, to say, I have a small business, all the people on my team are women, and they're all sort of like, young and dynamic, but I sometimes have other questions too, like, oh, I'm a freelancer, I'm dealing with one of my assistants the other day asked me, she's like, I'm working on another account, and can I ask you, how should I handle this situation with a client? And I mean, I'm totally flattered that she wanted my opinion, but also like, that's part of it, isn't it? I mean, yeah, I'm going to take an extra 10 minutes of our meeting to talk about that with you, because it's important. And we're all sort of out there on our own, daring to do our thing. And something that both panelists before me brought up is sort of what I call, sink or swim. And in a lot of situations, it's been like, I've sort of just done that. Like, you get thrown into it, and then you're like, okay, I said yes to this opportunity, and I'm not really sure, but I better learn how to swim. So, and in those moments, we can help build each other up. So I think those are the really rewarding moments. And as, oh my gosh, I forget the woman who spoke before us, who's the politician in Greece, talked about empathy. And Terry also talked about empathy and collaboration. And actually somebody on the previous panel talked about collaboration and some of the emotional components of being on a team as being what is going to make people successful in the future. It's not going to be your knowledge. It's not going to be, because machines are going to know all of that. Machines are going to do all the data. Machines, Google is going to tell you everything. What's going to matter is, how are you going to filter that data? How are you going to run your team? How are you going to listen to people's ideas, as Terry so well said, and collaborate with others? So those are what I see as the challenges and also the rewards.
Thank you for that. So you all spoke about passion, you spoke about collaboration, and then you spoke about being women in leadership roles and working with men. I mean, the majority of you, I'm sure, work with a lot of men. So my next question is, what kind of sacrifices did you have to make to get to where you were? And also, do you feel that if you were a male in your field, you would have had to do the same thing? I'll start with Alexandra. Wait 1 minute. Okay, go.
It's difficult for me to imagine if I was a man. I can't really imagine it, to tell you the truth. It's just too alien to me. And of course, I have 3 sons. So, and I come, the family business was led by 3 strong, talented men who had an influence in their community. That said, as I entered the business, as the widow let's say, of the leader of the business, I could feel that it's in my field. So most of the people, our customers, are men in each branch of the businesses we serve. They're men. So here I come, saying, and we made a very strong effort to do press around me for two reasons. One, because there is a mandate locally, federally, and citywide to use women-owned businesses. Wonderful. This is a mandate that, of course, our business could never exploit or explore before. This is so as the face of Vassilaros, this could be an advantage. Also, wonderful thing to be able to explore, exploit, find out more about. Here is an unexpected advantage. So, but in my community, in the tri-state area, all the customers we serve, it was like, okay, there's you, but who else is with you? Who else is there? Where's the guy? Where's the man? Who's the general manager? Who's the, you're the president. Who's the CFO? It was an interesting, I wouldn't call it a challenge. It was just a reality. I didn't want to be insulted or to take it personally. It was just a fact. So I just moved on. It's just one of the facts I incorporated in my awareness and just joined the room, carry on. And then that awareness I had becomes a little bit, less daunting. And the second thing is, I'll just tell you one little story. The other day I was talking to a customer. And we were speaking, and I said, my son, who comes from a tech background, he was a data scientist at Versado. He has decided to join our business as chief digital officer, which is a huge, wondrous thing for me. And I think for him. And when I mentioned this to the customer, he was like, "Oh, your son is joining? Why didn't you say so? Oh, that's wonderful. How wonderful to hear. Oh, I didn't know that your son was joining." It was an interesting, inherited belief that the son somehow lent muscle and value to his experience of our business. So that was just, again, interesting to notice. I don't take it personally. Whatever resonates with our customers is good for me. But always noticing the social component of that.
Thank you for that. Terry, would you like to give your input?
Sure. I didn't necessarily see it as, sacrifices that I had to make. I was where I wanted to be. Being a VP of Human Resources is a field where a lot of male leadership isn't that comfortable with, because we're really focused on serving the employees. And so I had an opportunity, as long as I was confident, I had ideas, I could back up my ideas, I was listened to. And I continued on in that effort because I couldn't focus on whether the male component had it easier or not. I couldn't change it. So that just gave me more courage to step up. If I believed it, I said it. I said it in a way that was short, concise, and powerful, and let them ask me more questions. And I found that really worked. I wasn't threatening in any way, but I was a thought provoker. And that really worked out for me. So I think that my job, because I love working with people and I really want them all to have and reach their potential, that my responsibility was to grow the role of HR in the organization, because HR doesn't always get to sit at the senior table where decisions are made. And so I used that opportunity to demonstrate just why should HR be at the table. And that helped me as well. And because, I was handling the biggest part of the budget. It's called salaries. So if you want your company to work, you want to keep talent, and you're going to spend the money, you should want me to be part of whatever decisions you're making moving forward to make sure we can do it, or that I can hire the right talent. So I had an advantage doing that, but I didn't really focus on that. I am sure I've been in the business world a long time. I'm sure it was there, but I wasn't focused on it. And I just moved forward to where I could contribute.
Thank you. Artemis?
I'm not sure that I would say that I've made sacrifices, and because, as I said, sort of I never thought of myself as different or as like a lonely woman out there until sort of later on, maybe. I will say that once I started, it dawned on me after I did this event that was like a wine event, and we had all these various collaborators and vendors. And at the end of the night, it was such a great night. I was like, let's all take a picture. And it's like 8 people and I'm the only woman. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really, and then I started noticing that. But I remember the challenges, and these are maybe not always, male women challenges, but I have found myself as being the bridge for people. There's often a lot of egos in the room. And, and I do think that, it is a feminine trait to be an empath, like sort of more naturally, and a collaborator. It comes really much more naturally for women. I'm also a psychotherapist, like that's my background. So I find myself in that position a lot where I am sort of like navigating people's demands and, unhappiness and whatever to make everyone put that smile back on and make things just happen. So I find that to be, something that's difficult with being the only woman on a team. So.
Thank you. So for the sake of time, I'm going to ask some more specific questions, and then I'll go back to the general ones if we have time at the end. So Alexandra, how have you been able to balance motherhood while also being involved in so many different community initiatives and then taking on a leadership role in your family's company?
Well, my children, when my husband passed, they were 15, 18, 20. So
Okay.
Though that's not the greatest time to lose your dynamic father, at least I didn't have to, I wasn't caretaking them on a daily basis, right, in the home. I was always very involved, but I always had a very active professional life anyway, even as a writer. So, but the values that I offer them, the values that I live, are the way that I mother, the way that I hold the container of the family, with or without my husband, because of course he's always with us, even though he may not be physically present. His influence, his values, the values that also were expressed through him, his father, grandfather, into the business, were shared by the both of us. So in that way, I would say that the values, the deeply held love, responsibility, to generate good communication with one another, those were the ways that our lives weren't segmented. There was a natural way to hold all the aspects of our life together, effectively.
Thank you. So Artemis, how has building the top marketing agency for Greek products and culture in the US proved to be challenging?
Okay. Well, I think, in any business, but I think I found especially challenging in sort of a communications business, that you have to sort of be constantly proving your value and your worth. And so you have to be sure that you have to be listening really well to what it is that somebody wants and how you can prove your value to them and how you can be valuable to them. Because often with, if you're doing communications or you're doing these things that people sort of think they can do themselves, and they don't want to invest in somebody to help them do that, then, you're constantly on this thing where you're having to build a relationship with your client, and you're having to, I've been really lucky, and I'm totally like humbled and flattered that most of my business is word of mouth. But again, it's always thinking about, am I providing what exactly they need? Listening, sort of reading between the lines. That's a challenge. And I realize it's a skill because even in the store that I had, the people that work for me, it's not something you can necessarily teach really easily. So that's like, where the leadership sort of comes in, and you have to think about like, how can I really get to what they're looking for beneath what they're saying? And it's not easy to teach your staff that. So there's a lot of collaboration that happens in terms of being at meetings together, talking about it, making sure that you're constantly following up, actively listening, collaborating, and then providing that value that other people find really valuable. So I keep using the word value. But I promote mostly Greek products. So like, it's something I'm really passionate about. And I talk about this a lot. And I think if you can't do something you don't believe in. So it's sort of infectious. If you really believe it, then other people will believe it. And your staff will believe it. And you're not just selling something, like you're creating a story. You're talking about something that's like really interesting and pulling at people's, emotional attention, which is what they'll remember at the end of the day. We often talk about that. Like, no one's going to remember everything you said. They're going to remember how you made them feel. Right. So that's the really, important thing, but it's not an easy thing. So, and that, I'm sure Alexandra with her, both of these women definitely know that. I see them both like nodding their heads.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So I've worked with Terry several times, and that's what she's always told me too, that you have to be passionate about what you're going to do. And getting to Terry, you are an outlier in your industry. Could you tell us more about how you started your business after being a professional woman in leadership for so many years?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to share my story. I think part of it started when I was in high school and I was a cheerleader. Now I'm going back in the early 60s. So my father was not really thrilled with me jumping up in front of people in a short skirt and a big woolen sweatshirt. But what ended up being 30 years later, I was able to point out to him that being a cheerleader, being able to communicate, to inspire, and to motivate people became a linchpin of my career and all of the jobs I had. I had been a VP for my company probably 20 years, had worked for the company for 30 years. It merged with another, and guess what? 68, I got laid off, and I wasn't ready to be laid off. I wanted to work. So I stopped after I whined and complained about being laid off. I stopped for a moment and said, what did I really enjoy doing about that job? And can I do that on my own? And that was helping people reach their potential. And so I went to Georgetown. I got my certificate in coaching, started out as a life coach, and then found out that 90% of the people that I was working with were out of work. And so we spent all the time on career coaching. So that's how I got involved into it. And one of the advantages I had starting my business so late is I had a lot of knowledge and experience already pent up. So I was just expressing what I had been doing previously, but having my own focus on it. And that is what I found to be very exciting. It gave me a purpose again, and I was doing what my passion was. And I still do it to this day with all that sort of enjoyment, certainly helping people develop the tools they need, the confidence they need in order to be successful and finding a position with purpose, not just a job with a salary. So I'm very excited now. I have a new lease on life. And although I really don't have a very good business acumen, because all of my profits go to charity, and I know we're going to talk about philanthropy and the role it plays, but I can live off my retirement. So I have this other advantage out there that I have freedom to really give and give from the heart without having to worry about paying for the rent for my roof over my head. So that has been very exciting. And I would encourage everybody, if you're not really ready to retire and play golf, I love golf, but a week of that would be enough of that. I needed to be challenged, interactive, but I also wanted to share what I had learned. It's part of the giving back. So that's what happened. And I'm thrilled to be a career coach. And my company's name is Giraffes Consulting.
Thank you, Terry. So last question, and all of you are open to answering it. What is the importance of philanthropy for you on top of your professional obligations? So Alexandra.
Well, philanthropy, giving of myself to others and being able to richly receive from what they give me back is foundational in my life. It is probably why I became a writer anyway, because I thought I had something to say about people I'd listened to. So it isn't even, it's so a part of my nature. And thankfully my husband shared that interest. I began all my philanthropy with volunteering, active volunteering in relationship with other people whose circumstances were different from mine, but who had so much heart, grit, resilience that I noticed could effectively influence my life, my point of view, and grace me with a sense of context about the world I live in. Very important. So I started leading writing groups at the Bowery Mission, one of the largest ministries in Manhattan to support people who are homeless, who are devoted to transformational care. And they really, I led workshops there for women in crisis for 7 years before I was invited to join the board of wonderful, wonderful, deeply committed and responsible organization, which I'm happy to be a part of, whose faith is central to what they deliver and to the mission of the mission. And then I also volunteered first as a writer to the 52nd Street Project, an organization which has a scholarship in my husband's name called the Johnny Fund that supports kids in need and at risk in Hell's Kitchen. So for me, you know, I just am made tender, made alive by my participation with these organizations and with the people that they support.
Thank you. Artemis?
So very similar. I have sort of grown up as a philanthropist. My dad was very, very into about giving back. It was always like, never forget your roots, but always give back. You're so fortunate, you know? And so, and of course, obviously I've been very close with my roots. So I started, you know, in high school and the church stuff. But also in my high school that I went to, we were required to do volunteer work. And so I started working at Good Shepherd Home with the disabled kids and talking about context, you know, wow, you know, you become so grateful for everything. So, you know, and then later as in my work as a guidance counselor after 9/11, I would work with kids and families, and I would encourage families to take their kids and volunteer with them. And they're like, oh, well, you talk to them all the time about charity work and blah, blah, blah. And we give money here and there. It's not the same. Roll your sleeves up, get your kids out there. I love the Bowery Mission, by the way. You know, I live on the Lower East Side when I'm in New York. You know, it's a really, really important thing. And then later in life, as a psychotherapist, I worked with the Billy Esposito Foundation, A Caring Hand, running bereavement groups, and sort of doing all kinds of things around grief with families who've lost somebody. My own father died when I was 16. So that's why like his legacy is sort of, I have a lot in common here with you. And I work with the Hellenic Initiative, who is, you know, is sort of the intersection of all the things that I love, is sort of a Greek nonprofit. I can work with them on communications. I run their new leaders program. I build their community with them. It's, you know, something that is just so fulfilling for me. So all the time I'm looking for ways to give back in all kinds of aspects. So
I love what you said about not forgetting your roots, because that's something that my parents always preach all the time.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Terry.
Yeah, I think philanthropy is really very important. To give back is to share. It gives you an opportunity to pay it forward. And it actually feels so good. You have so much gratitude afterwards. And as all the other ladies have said, you know, when you're in appreciation, you really understand what you have. One of the things about corporate philanthropic activities is that employees become so proud of where they work. And that's another way to encourage them to participate, to stay on with us and see it through to the end. So that bit of proudness is important. For example, my previous company and my company today, we sponsor the New York Women's Foundation. And that's an organization that supports the underserved population in New York City. Its programming focuses on women's leadership and development, and it encourages and supports women entrepreneurs. So, here's just another way that, giving back helps everyone.
Can I just say one more thing? Sometimes, philanthropy is not always a big thing. Sometimes philanthropy is, especially like since we're talking on a women's panel, sometimes philanthropy is just sort of asking a friend if they need help, especially in this pandemic. There are the panel before and the introductory speaker was talking about how women have been affected much more than men have. And, supporting one another is also philanthropy. Doing a small, getting a small group of people for, a walk that's a charity and then having brunch together is definitely philanthropy. Any kind of thing you can do to spread the word on social media about things that you care about is also philanthropy. So it doesn't always have to be these big, wide, swooping things. It's just sort of like having caring and compassion.
I like that. I'd like to thank all of you for your participation today. You all said great things. If anyone has any other questions for our panelists, they will be answered later on in the breakout room sessions. So put them in the chat and we'll address them later. I'd like to thank Chris for having me today and for having our speakers, and take it away.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, ladies, for your wonderful presentation and talking points. I was going to comment on something that came up in the discussion about the sink or swim option, and I use the term option very lightly because as a child of someone who was the first in her own groups and in her own profession, she told me, okay, sink or swim, Chris, but you can't sink. Right. So that's basically, I see that reflected in a lot of the responses that we had today. And I'm proud to say that all of the women who are present here today empower and lead not only one another, but those around them through their own example and their actions as mothers, as coaches, and yes, even TerryLynn as cheerleaders, not just to one another in our groups, but also to the students and young people who are entrusted to us and the relatives and colleagues who depend on us on a daily basis.